Guys, the guy we got going on here, or the guy we got going on, the guy we have on here tonight is a recovering attorney who has had a bad day, or hasn't had a bad day, matter of fact, not had a bad day, hasn't had a bad day in more than a quarter of a century. He pays for his love of adventure and travel through real estate investing. So that's a big one here. He has climbed to the highest point in Africa, swum with the wild dolphins in the Red Sea, dodged sharks while diving at night in Australia, and hiked among seals and penguins in Antarctica. He's been featured on hundreds of podcasts and radio shows where he has shared his inspiring story of staying positive and overcoming adversity and achieving success despite multiple life-threatening illnesses and financial ruin. He's graduated early with honors from Michigan State College of Law, and he also holds an MBA. When they're not, or when he's not exploring the world, I guess it's they. Jeff and his Chihuahua Trixie split time between their homes in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Right here, local guy. Loved to meet him, or loved meeting him a few months back here. And then he's splitting his time with Chattanooga, Tennessee, and San Juan in Puerto Rico, that he will show you on his background here in a second. And he's also often referred as the most interesting man in the world. So let's revisit that one at the end of the Zoom, and I guarantee you, you are going to agree. So with that being said, guys, I'm super thrilled to introduce to you tonight, Mr. Jeff Holst. To have you here, man.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. I mean, with that bio, I feel like I need to meet that guy. He sounds pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
Hey, I can tell you, I got the pleasure to do so, and I think you should.
Yeah, well, it was a pleasure to meet you too. It's always good. I forget who was saying it earlier, but they were talking about like being on stage and like going to networking events and stuff, and like that stuff is amazing. Like I've met the best people just like showing up at real estate events, or even just like business networking events and stuff like that. It's really fantastic.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, you were an inspiration. I remember when we met the first time and you showed me who you've met and how you got on these stages and everything. It was very, very inspiring. But we're going to get into that, of course. But usually the way we love to start in this interactive Zoom with a simple question here. And that simple question is, who is Jeff Holst?
Well, that's a broad question, obviously. Obviously the stuff you said in the bio, that's all true, but who I think of myself as is actually the most interesting man I know. That's the goal. Like, so I try to make decisions based on that. I don't think I'm actually the most interesting man in the world. I'm probably like 37th, maybe 38th, somewhere around there. I'm sure there's a couple dozen people ahead of me, but I just try to like frame my decision making around the idea that what would someone really interesting do, and it's more than just like I'm trying to attract attention to myself kind of interesting. It's broader than that. It's a whole mental framework that I've created around that. I call it hashtagification, where you basically come up with a concept. That's what my no bad days concept is, right? It's a hashtag. It means more than just no bad days. It means living the best possible version of your life. And the most interesting man in the world thing for me is it's about framing my decision making around how I can help as many people as possible and do as many really cool things as possible on the way.
That's amazing.
I love that. I love that. Jeff, Marcel mentioned in your bio, you graduated from law school. So, I mean, lawyers to me aren't the most interesting people, not to say that you're definitely an outlier in that respect, but I'm curious. Okay. I'm curious with you going into law, was this kind of no bad days, most interesting man in the world concept perspective, like in your kind of framework at that point? Or is this just talk us about like what was going through your mind when you were like trudging down the lawyer path?
Yeah. So, Wow, my arm keeps disappearing. These virtual backgrounds that you guys made me put up, they made me do this before the Zoom. They were like, you need a virtual background. You can't just have a blank, boring wall behind you. So anyway,
Well, Jeff, I didn't want you to have to move your laptop like you did it on our Zoom this
yeah,
week
that's
to
true. That's
showcase.
true. It's true. Yeah, when we yeah, so this actually, the background actually legitimately is the background of my balcony, right? Although right now it's dark out, so they wouldn't see anything anyway. It would just, we'd be looking at like blackness or something. You might hear the ocean though. But yeah, so the no, I went to law school to make money. I mean, and that's the absolute wrong reason to go to law school. I don't know if there's any real good reasons to go to law school, honestly, but I mean, unless you really want to be a lawyer, you shouldn't be going to law school. What happened to me was, I was sitting in a community college class, like my third year of a 2-year program, because I was an overachiever back then. And I was listening to a college professor, and he was talking about this sculpture by Michelangelo called the Moses. And this sculpture is it's an impressive piece of marble. I mean, it's probably the best marble sculpture ever created in the history of mankind. The detail's unbelievable. It's Moses seated with a flowing beard, and he's got a robe, and the robe is so thin in some places you can shine a flashlight through the marble. Right. I mean, it's just it's unreal how well done this is. And when Michelangelo finished it, when it was going to be the centerpiece for a pope's tomb, they were doing this great unveiling in front of the pope, and he just sat there and he wouldn't say anything. And finally, one of his students came up to him and was like, Master, you have to say something. And he took a chisel and he threw it at this sculpture. And he said, move. Right. Like he went, I mean, think about that. He went insane in front of the most powerful person in the world at that time. And I thought to myself, I have nothing in my life that I'm that passionate about that I would just like go crazy in front of like the president and the leader of all religions mixed up in one person, right? I just had nobody like that in my life, nothing that I was loving that much. So I decided I needed to go to Europe and see the sculpture. So I literally, like, the next day I ordered a passport. A couple of days later, I bought a plane ticket on 1-800 Priceline. This is like back in the 90s. You know, you had to call them. You couldn't even like use the internet, right? And so I called 1-800 Priceline. I got a plane ticket to London, and I picked London because, one, I'd never traveled outside the US before, so I wasn't entirely sure about landing in, like, say, Rome, where they don't speak English and I don't speak Italian. But also I wanted to make it an epic quest kind of adventure. So I had a 30-day round trip ticket. It was 30 days because that's the longest that Priceline would allow me to get. And I wandered my way around Europe, and I finally got down to this little tiny church in Rome behind the Colosseum up on a hill. And I went in and I saw the Moses, and I thought, nah. I mean, I honestly was not that impressed. Now I've gone back and seen it since, and I will say it is really, really impressive, and people should go see it. But it didn't solve my problem. You know, I walked out of that church and I sat down on the front steps of the church, and I looked down at the Colosseum, and I thought, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I have nothing that I'm that passionate about that I would just, you know, give up everything for it. And that set me on a quest, right? But I didn't know. So I'm looking down at the Coliseum, and I thought, well, I'm just going to go to law school, make some money, and I'm going to travel the world and see interesting places. I really like old stuff. So I made a little mental bucket list: the pyramids in Egypt, Machu Picchu in Peru, and Petra in Jordan. That was my list. And I was going to go make money, and I was going to go to those places. And so that's what I did. I went to law school. I got real motivated on getting through school at that point. I burned through, you know, undergrad. I got my master's. I went to law school. I got married along the way. But by 2008, I had actually done that. I went to all the places on my little mental bucket list, and then I remember sitting there looking down at Machu Picchu, and I felt that exact same feeling that I felt when I was sitting there looking at the Coliseum, and that was like, okay, now what? Like, what do I do now? Like, I don't really want to be a lawyer. I was happy. I'd given up bad days years before that, and we can talk about that too. But I was happy. I just didn't have purpose. You know, I mean, it wasn't like I was having a terrible life. I mean, I was traveling the world. I was practicing law. I even had a television commercial. I was like Better Call Saul of West Michigan. You know, like I was doing all this
That's
crazy
awesome.
stuff. But I wasn't living authentically in my purpose at that point.
And so when did real
Wonderful,
estate
Jeff.
come to the picture?
Well, I was interested in real estate way back. So like I grew up, my parents had a couple of single family rentals, and I always thought that was cool. And I was watching like Carlton Sheets, No Money Down on late night television. He had this program that was like, I don't know, $99 for 75 CDs or something, something crazy like that, of
Uh-huh.
how to buy real estate with no money down. And I'd watch these commercials, and I think I need to do that. I need to do that. And I always wanted to do it. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and right out of high school. But all through law school, and really even up to when I finished my bucket list in Machu Picchu, I didn't really do any real estate. I did one flip in law school, made like $5,000 or something, but I really didn't do real estate. And it wasn't until 2008 when I got done. I'll tell you a pro tip, by the way: never make a short bucket list if you're going to make a bucket list. Because I finished my bucket list, and no lie, 2 weeks later I was in the hospital dying. Like, I came down from Machu Picchu, I went home,
Wow.
I had an attorney quit on me while I was on the way back from Peru. Um, and then I got home, I had some kind of flu or something. I was feeling terrible. I went to the med center. They did blood work because they thought I maybe picked up a parasite in the Amazon, and I was diagnosed with leukemia, and told that I might not make it till Christmas. This was in
Wow.
September of 2008. And so yeah, so if you have a bucket list, keep adding to it. That's a pro tip, because if you finish it, you just it's time to kick the bucket, literally. And so I don't have a bucket list anymore. I have what I call a life list. I call it my 100 things life list, and I always try to keep at least 100 things on it, no matter what. So if I cross
Mm,
something out, I gotta add another one. It's
that's really
hard, man.
good.
100 things is hard. But like quick side note on that, like, anyone can write 10 things they want to do or 20 things they want to do. Try writing 100. You get to about 30 and you run out of ideas, and then you start coming up with crazy stuff. You're like, I want to donate $1 million to a cause I care about. And then you're like, and I want to speak to 10,000 people. Then you're like, no, I
Yep.
want to speak to 100,000 people at once. You start
Yeah.
doing all this crazy stuff. I want to go to the moon, right? Like, that's the kind of stuff that you have to have on those life lists, right? Anyway,
Hmm.
so I was sitting in the hospital, and people were like, because I want to flash back a second for consistency here. So when I was 17 is when I gave up bad days. I made a decision. It was almost that easy. I wish it was harder. I could write a longer book that way, but it was actually almost as easy as deciding. I literally just was like, I'm not having any more bad days. I choose to be positive. I'm gonna create affirmations. I didn't call them affirmations because I didn't know what they were. This is before Google and like YouTube and stuff, so I didn't know what they were. I just said, I'm gonna just keep telling myself it's a good day over and over and over again until it is. And that's literally how I started it. And so by the time I got diagnosed with leukemia, I was famous in my friend circle for being that weird guy that never has bad days, right? Like, I wasn't famous. I wasn't doing YouTube content or anything. No one knew I was, but my friends all knew. I was always telling them, "Oh, you don't have to have bad days." And people thought I was crazy then, just like they do now. It's fine. I don't care. But I I walked in the hospital on my own, and started calling people and telling them, "Hey, I'm at the hospital. Like, I have leukemia. I don't know what's happening. I might die, whatever." And people started showing up. And but I remember like two or three people came in the first day and said, "Oh, I bet today's a bad day," almost like they wanted to prove that it was a bad day. And I was like, well, actually, I didn't find out till 10 o'clock at night, so most of the day was pretty good. And then the the next thing that happened was, uh, I was like, man, you know what? The second day, that was actually worse than the first day, right? The first day I didn't find out till late at night, but that second day, I remember it was like maybe 2 in the afternoon, there was a shift change. And I was like, how am I going to find positive? Because, like, I've been conditioning myself for years. No matter what happens, there's always a positive. There's always something that you can learn from it. There's always some way to grow through the pain, right? Instead of go through it, you got to grow through pain. So I was always
Yep.
thinking that stuff. And I was like, okay, so where's the positive here? Where's the positive here? And there was a shift change. The nurse walked into my room, and she goes, "Oh my God, Jeff, I'm so sorry to see you here." And I went, "Oh my God, Shelly, I'm so happy I'm here." And I think she thought I was insane, but it was, a childhood babysitter of mine I hadn't seen in, maybe a dozen years. And I was
Wow.
just so excited to see her. And that made my day feel good. And this is the key, right? Like, you could weigh that: childhood babysitter, dying of leukemia. Which one's more important? Doesn't really matter, actually, because The thing is, how you feel about the day is how you receive the day, right? How you perceive the day is how you receive the day. So I just looked at it and went like, okay, today's a good day. I got to see this childhood babysitter. My family was coming to see me and they cared about me. And I'm going to just live out the rest of my life, whether it's 3 weeks or 3 years or 30 years or 50 years. Right. And I'm still hoping for that 50,
Sure.
I'm going to live out the rest of my life, however many days I have, and I'm just going to keep having good days. There's no reason to quit now. And that was a fundamentally game changing moment for me, because the other thing that happened was, ultimately, that the disease drove me into personal bankruptcy. So I was a bankruptcy attorney that went bankrupt, but it was also the day that I decided I need to figure out how to make money on my own, where I was getting money even if I couldn't work. Because you remember I said I had an attorney quit, and then I
Mhm.
couldn't work for months. And so we had this like $5,000-6,000 a week advertising budget, phone book ads. I know it sounds crazy now, but that's what we had back then, and television ads and all this stuff. And we couldn't take any new cases, and we still had to pay all those contracts. And it literally went from making 3 or 4 thousand a week profit to losing 5 or 6 thousand every single week for almost an entire year. And I just stacked up tons of credit card debt, tried to dig out of it for a while, and finally said, you know what? I'm going to go do something else. And I filed bankruptcy and walked on. But you know what? Um, Another one of those days, it could have easily been a terrible day. It ended up being one of the best days of my life, because it got me to the point where I was like, you know what? I don't really want to be a lawyer. I should have never went to law school. I mean, I don't regret law school because I met great people there. One of my business partners in multifamily real estate, we have a couple hundred units together, is the guy I went to law school with. In fact, the same guy I did that first flip with. So I don't regret that part of it at all. But the reality is, I didn't love being a lawyer. I loved the money that I made being a lawyer, but I didn't love being a lawyer, and I love real estate. And so I chose to start buying real estate in 2011, when credit was super easy to get, when I had literally just filed bankruptcy and I had no cash, and I had $100,000 in student loans that didn't go in my bankruptcy. So I had $100,000 negative net worth. And I was like, I'm going to
Wow.
start buying real estate. So that's how I got started in real estate.
Man. So let's just to look back at it, Jeff. That was in 2008 is when you got diagnosed, right? That was in
Mhm.
2008. And then you had to file bankruptcy when exactly?
It was around 2010. I
2010.
think,
Okay.
yeah, a couple years later, I tried. I really tried to stick it out, but I just couldn't do it. I got to turn that background off. It's driving me crazy.
No
No
problem.
worries.
No
All
problem.
good there. So then it's 2010. You filed bankruptcy. That's usually, I mean, just for everybody to understand that, right? I mean, overcoming the disease, obviously, right, or still battling it at that point. I'm assuming somewhat,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um,
Actually, I still have leukemia today. I take chemotherapy drugs orally every single day for
it's
14 years now.
crazy. And then seeing how that impacts your life, your professional career, filing bankruptcy, where everybody else would legitimately stick the head in the sand, right? But not you. You do the exact opposite, right? You say, you know what? I'm going to change everything, right? I'm going to change everything. I'm going to do something that doesn't add up. Actually, I'm going to buy real estate. I'm going to buy real estate and keep crushing on that. And someone might even claim that your your um your thinking of no bad days, or your positive mindset is probably what saved your life, right? It's probably what actually got you going and just continuously being happy, right?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely didn't hurt, right? Like I could have curled up in the corner when I was diagnosed and died, right? Like people do that. They get bad news
Exactly.
and then they give up. I chose to find the very best doctors in the world. Like I literally, the course of treatment that I'm on, I consulted with the person who invented it. That's like, I mean, like, and it later was hailed as a miracle drug. I mean, like now it's the standard course of treatment, but it wasn't standard course of treatment in 2008. Like it was just brand new experimental
Wow.
type treatment. And my doctor offered to prescribe it to me, and I said, okay, cool, but I wanna know everything there is to know about this stuff. And so I ended up going down to MD Anderson and meeting with the doctor that was one of the two people that invented the treatment protocol. And I had the conversations with her and said, I want to make sure I'm doing exactly what I need to do. And so, that came from the mindset. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I'd been depressed and, hiding in a corner somewhere. But for sure, the real estate stuff did, because I literally went like, I might not live. I still didn't know how long I had, we were still wondering about that. And I thought I need to figure out a way for income to come in, even if I can't work. Like, so, we didn't have any money, we didn't have any credit. So I mean, fortunately, because of my education, I got a pretty decent job. I moved to Tennessee at that time. I had been in Michigan before that. Went to work. I took my first bonus and I used it as to buy a property. We ended up having to buy a condo for cash. Remember, this is 2011. Stuff was really cheap then. So we bought a $30,000 condo, bank going foreclosure. And then I didn't have any money left, right? Like I bought half and half with my partner in Michigan, the guy I went to law school with, and I didn't have any money left. So it was like I put $17,000 in, and I was like, I'm out of money. And I remember my now ex-wife told me at the time, she said, if this doesn't work out, we're never buying real estate again. Fortunately, it worked out, or at least I never told her if it didn't, because we still own it today. I mean, that condo is probably worth like 150, 160,000 now. Rents for $1,500 a month. It's nice little condo in a suburb in Detroit, Michigan. And we ended up buying another one in the building a few months later. I ended up having to borrow that money from a friend. And then, after that, we're like, well, how do we get creative? So we started using some private money lenders and stuff like that. And over the course of the next 6 years, we bought about 50 units without ever having any bank financing on anything. And then when my company I was working for was getting ready to sell to a bigger company, I was like, I can't do that. I already don't like having a job. Like I can't work for a big corporation. So I took a 6-month severance and I never went back to work. So I literally went from dying and bankrupt, right? Both of those things, to retired in 7 years.
So you basically then worked continuously as a lawyer while you got started in your real estate journey down here in Tennessee at that point.
Yeah, I actually never practiced law in Tennessee. I took a job in a completely different career because I knew I didn't want to be a lawyer. I was like, so I did some like back end legal. It was a corporate in-house kind of legal stuff. But it was mostly like, reviewing contracts or something. But I went and worked in transportation. I hired a bunch of truck drivers. We grew the company from 4 trucks to 96 trucks and then sold it. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
Jeff, okay, we skimmed through the 6 years basically from bankrupt to retirement pretty quickly. Could you just unpack a little bit about what were those pivotal moments, those strategic maneuvers that you made that could be applicable to the Freedom Chasers community today to accelerate our chase for freedom?
Yeah. I mean, so part of it is just like having your mindset right and knowing that, you just like, I felt like I didn't have a choice. So I just did it. We never took $1, by the way, out of our real estate for that whole 7 years. We put in that original 17,000 or whatever, and we never took a single dollar back. Every time we'd flip something, every time we'd refinance, every time we'd sell something, it didn't matter. We always just reinvested it. All the rents, all the cash flows, everything got reinvested for 7 years. So that was a great wealth accelerator. If you can invest at 10, 12, 15, 20%, whatever it is, and you just keep putting the money back in, it starts to compound really, really quickly. That company, probably our equity in it now is probably $1.5 million, maybe even $2 million from a $17,000 investment, 15 years ago. 12, 13 years ago. I mean, and that's amazing. And we've taken distribution since then, right? But we also crafted something I call side aid investing. I don't know anyone else that teaches how to do this. And you guys all need, I mean, honestly, like you want to learn one thing right now, this is a game changer for me. I've used it to buy apartment buildings without having a single dollar of my own money in it. I've bought, in fact, the most recent deal we did on a side aid was a 16 unit building. We bought it for 750,000. We sold it for 1.4 million. 18 months later, I owned 40% of the equity. My other partner owned 40%, and neither of us had $1 in it. Right. So this is something like, I'm telling you, if you can pull this off, like it's just going to change your life. You want to accelerate your wealth. This is the way to do it. So here's what you do. You got to be really careful. Like, I'm not giving legal advice, just to be clear. I mean, I am a lawyer in some states, but I can't give legal advice. Consult attorneys, securities attorneys, and all that stuff. But if you can avoid accidentally meshing yourself into an SEC problem, which is, something you need to be careful on, what you can do is you can create a company where 2 or 3 people are all active investors. They all have the same rights, the voting rights and all that stuff. They're actively involved in the deals. They're helping vet the deals. So you're not selling a security. So for people who don't know, you don't have to call it a syndication for something to be a syndication. If you take money from an investor and they expect to make a profit through efforts that's not their own, in other words, they expect that you're going to do something and they're going to make money, then that's a security. And it's okay. It's just you have to know you're selling a security at that point. You're not selling real estate, you're selling an investment opportunity. And if you sell an investment opportunity, it's regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. So you do have to be a little careful with the strategy. But what we do on this strategy is we partner with someone. So, like, let's say I found a 10 unit building and I said to Marcel, Marcel, let's go buy this. I've got this great deal. We're going to be 50-50 partners. Let's go start an LLC, Jeff and Marcel LLC, right? And we're going to go buy this deal. And we need $250,000 to buy it for the down payment, right? And both of us are going to sign a bank loan and we're going to go borrow the other, say, $750,000, right? This is $1 million property. Now, there's a couple of different ways we can structure that capital stack, right? Like we can get a bank loan and then Marcel and I can each put in $250,000 or, $125,000 and split the equity 50-50. But I don't like that deal because I don't want to put my own money and I want an infinite return at all, if at all possible. So what I would do instead in that scenario is I'd say, Marcel, this is what you're going to do. You're going to loan $250,000 to our company, 6% interest only. We're going to pay you back in 5 years. And we're going to use that $250,000 as the down payment on this property that we're going to buy. That's the whole structure right there. So I'm going to pay you interest. Now I'm not going to pay. The company is going to pay Marcel interest on his unsecured loan. Now people will say like, well, we're still going to have to both be active, right? Like we're both involved in the deal, but I found the deal. So you're going to loan money to the company. That's kind of our trade-off. Now people will say to me all the time, well, why would someone do that? I'll tell you why someone would do that. It's hard to find deals, especially now. You got a good deal. There's money that wants to buy that deal. So if you find something really good, you have the credibility with your partners to say, hey, I know this is a good deal, and you get their attention. And maybe you have a rich uncle or something that like wants to put money in, doesn't have quite as much time to be involved in it, but can still be involved. I mean, that is the key. They do have to be involved. They're going to have to sign guarantees, stuff like that. Otherwise you run into follow the securities law. But the structure works amazingly. I've done it probably maybe a dozen or more times to buy apartment buildings now. I bought a 42 unit building recently with that too. I forgot about that one. Just like it's so great when you start buying these buildings, you can't remember you own them. I focus on this like 10 to like 50 unit building thing, and we buy 3-4 of them a year, and then I kind of forget about them because I have like partners who are property managers that deal with it, and I just, oh yeah, that's right, I own that. So Mario, I call it side aid investing. There's really no name for it. Like I actually went on Bigger Pockets about 2 years ago, and I told well, it started, if you guys know who Matt Faircloth is, he wrote this book on raising private capital. During COVID, Matt and I did this thing called he did a COVID happy hours on his YouTube channel. And I have this real estate show called the Old Fashioned Real Estate Show, where we drink old fashions and talk about real estate. So we did a 2 hour long Zoom on his YouTube channel. We call it the Old Fashioned Happy Hour, and we just got wasted drunk, right? Talking about real estate. It was like me and Matt and like a couple other guys. And it was so fun. The video's still out there, so you can find it. But we got a little sloppy, and we started joking. I was telling him about this strategy, right? I was telling him how I just bought this 16 unit and how I didn't put any money in it and stuff like that. And he was like, "I've never heard of that. That's great. I should hear of this. Like you should come up with a name for it." And he said to me, he goes, who would be really good at naming this would be Brandon Turner. Brandon's really good at naming stuff. And I was like, well, if I ever run into him, I'll ask him. And then when I got on the Bigger Pocket show, we spent about 10 minutes of the interview trying to figure out what we're going to call that strategy. So Brandon came up with side aid investments. So that's what we're sticking with.
Boom. Man, that was all a lot at once. We need to unpack that, Trevor. We need to unpack that a little bit. So the big takeaway, I think, for starters, and it's what I've been trying to tell the community all week long, is what you did is replicable, right? It's super replicable from day one. I mean, you are financially free. you travel the world, you live in Puerto Rico half of the time, let's call it that,
Maybe more now. We'll see.
maybe more, right? But you don't buy deals really usually more than 50 units,
Yeah.
right? So, and that's what I'm trying to tell everybody. What I'm trying to tell everybody, like, you got to listen to Jeff, because he had no money, no credit, I mean, filed bankruptcy, and had other challenges in life to face, and yet figured it out. And here it is, right? So Jeff, how did you get started in sourcing these? Like, when you started with real estate, obviously, so you had some condos, you said, right? You looked at
Yeah.
some single family stuff, but when did it start rolling into this multifamily, right? And then obviously, how did you go from, you had a 12 unit, then you had I'm just making this up now, right? 20 unit, 24 unit, because we talked about this, right? How you pulled money here,
Yeah.
you never took a dime. Can you unpack that a little bit, how the trajectory was and how it grew
Sure.
year by year?
Yeah. So we did all single family and duplexes, the sub 4 unit stuff, right up till 2017 ish. So that was the first like 7 years that I was 6 or 7 years I was investing. And when I quit working, I didn't have any multifamily at all. So I quit my corporate job we had at that point 30 of our 56 units were free and clear. So we had a little cash flow coming in, but we still hadn't taken a dime of cash flow. And so I got this severance and I went, I got to figure out how to live, because like my other partner didn't want to do cash flow distributions. So I bought this duplex and did a burr on it, right? With my severance. And then when I got the refinance, I thought because I now had all this free time. This is the great part about not working, is you have free time. So I was reading books and listening to podcasts, and I realized I had been doing this all wrong. Like, you should get to like 5 units and up as fast as possible, because you control the value, right? The way the cap rates work. So I was like, I need to do more of these bigger deals. And so I wanted to start targeting B-class multifamily in or around Chattanooga. And so I just started looking, LoopNet, trying to find brokers, whatever I could do. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I did find my very first deal was a 12 unit. So it's funny that you said that. 12 unit in Ringgold, which is just south of Chattanooga, and I bought it off of LoopNet. I probably overpaid for it. Although I did sell it. I paid $635 for it. I think I overpaid 10%, let's say. But we sold it in 2021 for 1.2 million. So, and yeah, I mean, that's insane, right? Like, and we had refinanced and took our money out. And so we had like $500,000 like that we rolled forward, and we used to buy a retail shopping mall. So we've got a 30,000 square foot shopping center that I have $0 in, right? Because I did this flip or the burr deal. I refinanced the burr. I used that money as a down payment, and I didn't have enough. So I called my dad and I said, Dad, I want to buy this building. Like, I will put up half, you put up half. And we went and bought the building. And then later we let it take care of itself. We renovated it. We raised the rents. We raised the value. We benefited from the market. Obviously, the market's been really good the last several years. A little toppy right now, maybe, but and we can talk about where I think the market's going if you want. But the truth is, we were able to turn that first deal into like a home run, even though it was a little overpaid, right? Like, so it didn't matter. And then once I bought that, my partner up in Michigan was like, wait, you're buying apartment buildings? I want to buy apartment buildings. So we bought a 19 unit. So this is October of 17, we bought the 12 unit, we bought the 19 unit in November of 17. Then we sold 10 houses that we had for a long time. We 1031 into a 32 unit building, which we bought in like the spring of 18. And then it was just off to the races after that.
Jeff, I'm going to selfishly ask a question here.
Yeah, do it.
Because it kind of relates to my situation, but probably many others here, right? I mean, the typical journey is, if you want to get into multifamily, you feel like you got to cut your teeth in the single family space, and then you build up your resume or whatever your experience, and then you make the transition. Now I understand that's just a concept, but hey, that's a lot of people's path. No problem with it. So for those that have some single family homes in their portfolio, like myself, single family long-term rental properties, what is your strategic advice as far as maybe how long to hold on to those, when to dump them and invest them into larger properties?
So I've regretted almost everything I ever sold, to be honest with you, except for the stuff that I really didn't like. So if you have a property that sucks, get rid of it now. I mean, that's the rule, right? If you're having a property that struggles, you're just, and it might be good for someone else, but if it's difficult, get rid of it, buy something else. Um, but I don't know that you need to get rid of your single families to buy multifamilies. I mean, just do a side date deal or a syndication or something and get into it with someone else's money and keep your single families.
All right. 10-4. Thank you.
I mean, I'm slowly selling them off. I still have some now. I had 56 at the peak. I think we're at like 25 or something now. So it's not like I don't think you should sell them. Like if you can get crazy money for them because the market's way up and they don't make sense as a rental, then because that's the other thing, right? Like you should be refinancing or selling every single property you have every 5 years. If you can, you really should. Especially with multifamily. Single family, it's a little different because you can have those like long-term fixed rate 30-year mortgages on them. But if you've got a property that rents for $1,000 a month, but it's now worth 200,000 a month, 200,000 bucks, you wouldn't buy a $200,000 property that rents for $1,000 a month, most likely. So if you wouldn't buy it now, you should sell it now.
Okay. Thank you.
Sell it.
Because that's really a buy decision every time you keep it, right? Every single day that you keep a property, you should be asking yourself, would I buy it for the price I could sell it for?
Okay.
I think you sparked some ideas there, Trevor. Now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
No, just anyway. But Jeff, you also mentioned that you had a partner, right? You had a partner, property management, and everything. Can you elaborate a little bit the importance of that partner in your trajectory, and how important it is, to have somebody, that might have a little bit of a different skill set than you?
Well, it's super important for me because I'm a terrible property manager. I know that because I've managed some of my own properties occasionally. So I have two primary partners, one in Chattanooga and one in Michigan. And they both own property management companies. They're both much more operational than me. And I'm more of the come up with crazy ideas, let's push us forward mindset kind of guy than the partnership thing. No, I am really good at underwriting also, which is another skill that I think people really need to be good at. I mean, I think that the trick with a partnership, and I've done all I mean, I have probably, not even including limited partners, I probably have like 25 or 30 partners, different partners on different deals. Um, in everything I've ever done, I've had a partner actually. Now that I think about it, I think the trick to getting a partner is it's like kind of like a marriage. You want to make sure you get the right person because it's really expensive to split up.
That's right. That's right. Somebody recently told me, now you're divorced with children.
Yeah, because you're stuck, right? Like you have that building for however long you have the building,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and it's okay. Like as long as you have clear understandings, stuff like that up front. But if you don't have it up front, it's a real problem.
Yeah. And we talk about this in the community very often. I think we got really lucky the way we came together and how Trevor and I met. Matter of fact, for anybody that hasn't seen Trevor's recent reel yet, and where he unpacked how it all started, you should go check it out on his IG channel. Super authentic, man. Props to
Thank you, bro. Thank
How
you.
you
Thank
bring
you. I
it.
appreciate the shout out, man. Props to you, man. Thankful for you, bro.
Yeah, I mean, it's a story to tell, and will always be a story to tell, right?
Yes,
but
it will.
it's not about us tonight, right? It's not about us. So,
That's right.
Jeff, we have 5 minutes until we want to open up for Q&A here for people to get some access to you, to be honest. Can you, in the last 5 minutes, elaborate more on your book that is launching on Tuesday?
Yeah, sure. So looks like this, although it might be reversed there, but no bad
Nope,
days.
good.
It's good. It's reversed
Yep.
on my screen anyway, but
Yeah.
no bad days, how to make every day great. I'm really happy with it. It tells my life story, right? So it's a memoir self-help. It's not a how to give up bad days book. It sounds like that, but it does teach you how to do it indirectly. So each chapter is a specific lesson, something I learned at a specific point in my life, told roughly chronologically. And then we end each chapter with a series of questions, reflection questions to help you sort of figure out what you should be learning from that. I'm very happy with it. It does tell you the cool things like, going to the pyramids and Sorry, I apologize for moving my monitor around here. I have a foot cramp all of a sudden, and I'm like, it's really uncomfortable. But anyway, so I yeah, so it's like there's some of that exciting adventure type stuff. There's some real estate advice in there, but more than anything, it's really about about how to live the best possible version of your life. And that's my real passion. I believe that each one of us was put on earth for a reason. And there's only one Trevor Walker. Well, there might be more Trevor Walkers, but there's only one of you, Trevor, right? And like you, if you don't do the things that you're supposed to do, you're kind of cheating the world of the possibilities of the things that you could have done. And I feel that for every person, like if you can do something and you don't do it, you're cheating your family, you're cheating your community, you're cheating the world out of whatever greatness you could have achieved. And so I'm trying to help people figure out what it is that what they should be doing with their time, and how to find their life purpose, how to move forward in in a positive and uplifting way. So that's really
I
what the
love it.
book's about.
I love that, Jeff. So for everybody here, if you feel like that tonight, so far, Jeff was able to, let's call it, activate you in some type of way, right? This book for sure is gonna activate you even further with the stories that Jeff can tell you. And
Hey,
Jeff,
and by the way, I appreciate you guys sending all the links in the chat and stuff, but I want to say this one thing. I'm trying to game the system on Amazon, right? So one of the reasons why I wanted to come on here and talk to you guys tonight is I really want this book to be an Amazon bestseller. And a little behind the scenes thing that a lot of people that are not in the publishing industry don't know is they calculate those things multiple times a day. So if you haven't already bought my book, if you already bought it, that's cool. I'm super happy. I appreciate it. But if you're thinking you want to buy the book, if you can wait to buy it until Tuesday morning, it would help me tremendously on getting this bestseller status. And the reason I want it is not because I'm going to make a bunch of money on it. I won't make any money on this book, right? Like I got a tiny advance, $100. My publisher's going to get a bunch of money before I get any money. That's just the way these things work. But what I really want to do is I want to get the book in the hands of as many people as possible, because I keep getting messages from people that say, "Hey, I heard you on this podcast. I haven't had a bad day in 2 years. I haven't had a bad day in 3 years." And I know that people who read this book will give up bad days. It won't work for everyone because not everyone's ready for it, but it will work for some people. And the more people we can impact, it's like a ripple effect. Because if Marcel gives up bad days today, then Marcel's wife gets to benefit from that. And then a little later, she gives up bad days. And then your kids grow up without bad days. And then, you're talking to people about how you don't have bad days. And then other people give up bad days. And we're making the world better, not just for Marcel, but for all kinds of people, one person at a time. And so if you can wait till Tuesday to buy the book, that's great. If you go over to my website, well, you can sign up for a reminder email. It's jeffreyholst.com/book. And you can sign up for a reminder email. We'll send you an email Tuesday morning with a direct link to the Amazon page.
I love it. And this so much aligns with the purpose and the core values of us and this community, right? Because getting to know Jeff a little bit more, and now he's not doing this for himself, right? And I know the story you told us, maybe you can elaborate just for a couple minutes on how this book got out, how this book even got to the point of being published, right? But
Yeah.
the best part is it's not about Jeff here, really. It's about the greater good, right? About impacting people.
Yeah, no. So the short version is I wrote the book for myself. I was writing notes to myself, and then I wrote a little bit and I shared it with my then wife, and she was like, "Oh, that's you should tell people this story, like it's important." And I thought, well, you're probably right. So I wrote some more, and then I wrote some more, and pretty soon I had a whole book, and I didn't know what to do with the book. And I walked into a bank, and I have a pretty good relationship with my bankers. And one of the bankers said, "Hey, my dad's visiting. I'd love to introduce you to him." So he introduced me to this guy, and he says, "How'd you get into real estate?" I told him a little bit about my story, and he was like, "You should write a book." And I was like, "Actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I finished one today." And he's like, "Oh, could you send it to me?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So I sent it to him. 2 days later, I get an email from him. "Hey, can I send this to my publisher? I think it's really good." And I'm like, "You have a publisher?" Question mark. And he replied back, "Oh yeah, I'm a New York Times bestselling author." And he sent it to his publisher. The CEO of the publishing company at Morgan James called me 3 days later and offered me a book contract. It's not supposed to work that way. But the thing is, I think the world does conspire to give us great opportunities if we just put ourselves out there.
Amazing, man. What a great story. All right, everybody. I would say let's open it up here. Let's give you the chance, also everyone here, to speak to Jeff. Right, ask Jeff some questions. Maybe even talk about what you got going on in your life and how no bad days could impact that. So if you guys got questions, raise your hands. If you don't, then we're gonna continue with our questions. I guarantee you that. But if you do, raise your hand, and then we're gonna bring you up here to ask you a question. So who has a question? And if you don't, then we're going to keep going here. But I would highly encourage you, there we go, to utilize this opportunity right here, right now. There we go. Peter, I see you got your technology sorted out now.
I'm back at home. I'm not in the car anymore. So great to see you guys. Jeff, thanks for joining us tonight. Honestly, I didn't really have a question. I'm sitting here listen. I'm so glad you brought that up because I was literally just about to click on the link and order the book.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Love to do whatever we can do to help you get that status. And I can just tell, like you said, it's not about the money, right? What's the money you could make?
Listen, if I sold 10,000 copies of the book, it would be a miracle, and I would make like $8,000 then, because I don't make very much money on this thing, and that's cool. I like money, but it wouldn't be worth the effort to write the book to make $8,000. It's a lot of work to write a book. Turns out.
It reminds me of back in the day when I used to listen to Dennis Waitley tapes, and the psychology of winning, and you can name Zig Ziglar, whoever, and it's just that positive mindset is so powerful, and the fact that it quite possibly literally saved your life.
Yeah,
and
well,
now,
I believe it did. Yeah.
Yeah, and now the impact that you can have, and whatever we can do, whatever this community can do to help expand that impact. And I love that point you made that that we all have things that not one of us on this call will reach our ultimate potential, right? It's
sure
just
not.
It's not really possible. Elon Musk hasn't reached his full potential, right?
I know, but how sad would it be if Elon Musk just after he sold PayPal went, oh, I've got $100 million, I'm done.
Right.
Like,
He
how
quit.
sad is the world if he just, and it would be
Right.
tempting to quit, and instead he leveraged everything. So, I would love to meet Elon Musk and just thank him for being an example of what people can achieve. Like, even if we
Right.
don't like him, he's got some crazy stuff that he does and whatever, but like, I love people that do big things because of that.
Right. And that's what really struck me about what you said, is that we all have something to do. We all have a purpose. And it's a moral obligation to figure out what that is, to not cheat the world of our skills. And I just wanted to reiterate that point that you made in case somebody missed it. So thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. All right, we got Cheryl. What's up, Cheryl?
Good evening. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Oh, great. No bad days.
Oh, that's amazing.
Also, no bad nights. And Hukuna Sinkumbaya, that's Swahili for no bad days. So.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one. Yeah, I could use a campfire kumbaya night this summer, or many. Yeah. So my question is, and sorry, it's kind of, winding down time for me. So it's a little dim here. I have my nighttime setting lights. So my question was to you, are you retired investor, or are you still?
No, I'm still buying. I bought a 56 unit building 2 weeks ago. So that's the biggest building we've ever bought. Not the most expensive, actually. We got a really good deal on it. And we bought last year we bought 100,000 square foot of industrial, and also about 100 units of apartments.
Wow, that's incredible. That's really fun. Yeah.
Oh, I bought an office building this year too, actually. Almost forgot about that one.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So you're looking at probably around like 200 or 250 units total?
I think
300?
we're probably like 420, 425, somewhere around there.
Awesome.
And I have partners on everything, so I don't really think about. I'm not like one of those like I'm bragging about my unit count, guys, because I don't, it's like, if you own
Right.
1% of 3,000 units or you own 30 units of your own, I mean, who's better off? Probably the person with 30 units of their own.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Okay. Well, I am getting to be more experienced maybe. But I'm still like humble because, I never stopped growing in this business. So, yeah, I guess that was my only question.
Well,
And
I
you're
Keep
think,
crushing it.
yeah, I mean, honestly, like you have to keep growing. And that's the best advice I could give anyone is like constantly be learning, because learning is the best way to mitigate risk. And the way you win in real estate is to accept less risk. The less risk you take, the better. So I know that sounds crazy. Everyone always says more risk is more return, but the reality is the market sets the rate of return on an asset based on the risk level. So there's a risk-free rate of return and a risk premium on every single deal. And if you can get that higher risk premium, the riskier assets, but you can mitigate your own personal risk by having better knowledge. Like I don't buy duplexes anymore, but there's one street in Chattanooga where every time a duplex comes up, I almost always buy it because I know that street better than anyone else. Right. So I take less risk
Mhm.
than the market would take, and I get a better return as a result of that.
Because
It's
you
no
got the
different than
knowledge.
what hedge funds do in like giant trading on Wall Street. If you can figure out a way to mitigate your personal risk, you win.
Love it.
So
right.
keep learning.
Thank you,
Oh,
Cheryl.
awesome.
Very good.
Yes,
Let's
thank
go.
you. A lot of my partnerships are, you know, in the higher wealth bracket. So I'm really proud for that. Like my coach starts beginning units at like 200 and 240. So he won't even like look at a deal if it's below that, you know.
You got
So
to start somewhere, Cheryl. You got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah,
Right, but
yes, absolutely.
let's get to the other three questions. We only got 6 minutes, so
All right,
appreciate the
2 minutes
feedback
each,
there.
guys. 2 minutes
There we
each.
go. 2 minutes each. We got our hawk, the multifamily cigar king, what he's also called.
I love it. I was smoking a cigar right before I got on the Zoom. Like I don't smoke in my living room, or else I would be smoking one right now.
Hey, that's awesome, Jeff, man. Nice to meet you, man. And your story is so inspirational. I mean, there's so many downs in life. You have to have that mindset. So I wanted you to talk a little bit more about, I think what you were talking about with framing, right? So any situation, the way you frame it is the way that you actually look at it and you make it a positive. So I just wanted to, for everyone on here and for me as well, that I've done this a lot. And what I will say, that just to bring my point home, I just started a sports agency. Been working at it for 20 years, and all throughout the way, I've had people try to tell me, you can't do it. What are you doing? You're wasting your time. And it's been 20 years in the making. And through that 20 years, I had a whole strategy to build it out. So that's just a microcosm of my story. But I just wanted to, talk to you about framing
Yeah.
and use that to make your situations better.
Well, first off, just persevering is huge, right? And that's what you're talking about with taking 20 years to get to where you are. But so yeah, it's framing. Like I'll give you one quick example. So I was diagnosed with melanoma 2 years ago. And that's like when you already have one cancer, getting a second cancer, that's usually really bad news, right? People beat one, they don't usually beat multiple cancers. And so the first thought was like, damn, that sucks. Right. The very next thought for me, because I'm always looking for the positive, and this is you train your brain to get better at this over time. There's science behind that too. We don't have time to get into it, but the very next thought for me was, this is going to make a really good story on a podcast someday. Like someday I'm going to be able to talk about how I had melanoma and I was like, yes, I beat melanoma too. So like to me, that's what framing is about. It's about just recognizing that you have to deal with whatever you're dealt, and then you have to find the positive in it. Two quick thoughts on that. One is Hal Elrod has this quote, the Miracle Morning author. He says, the moment you accept 100% responsibility for anything in your life, or for everything in your life, is the moment you can change anything in your life. right? So it's not like it was my fault I got melanoma. Well, it could have been, maybe, I suppose, because of skin cancer exposure to the sun or whatever. Definitely wasn't my fault I got leukemia, but it was my responsibility to deal with it. And that's where I think framing comes in, is it's one way to deal with the junk that we all have to deal with.
Awesome, awesome. We got to share a cigar together when we meet.
Yeah. Send me a DM on Instagram. We'll make it happen.
Absolutely. I'll send you a Cuban
Oh.
cigar too.
All right. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Hawk. All right, Aldo.
Awesome. Hey, Jeff, thanks for the talk tonight, man. It really hit home, and awesome to see you again as well. We met briefly at one of the networking events here in Chattanooga.
Yeah. Well, hit me up on DM too, and we'll meet when I'm back in town.
Heck yeah, let's do it. We'll grab a cigar.
Yeah, for sure. Why not? I love smoking cigars. I'm stuck with cigars. Apparently, it's a thing now.
Yeah, hey, there you go. Awesome, man. No, hey, listen, I wanted to say that this resonates a lot with me and my partner as well. We obviously we named our company after the entire philosophy of stoicism, and just the idea that you can't control everything, but you can control your reaction and accepting the responsibility of that, not just to yourself but to the world around you, is huge. So thank you for that. What I am curious to hear is, you mentioned what your thoughts were on the market. I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. So I could talk about this for way more than the 30 seconds left I have in this 2 minutes, but the short version is, I don't think we're in for a crash. Most people think I'm wrong about that. I recognize it, but there's a 3 million unit housing shortage in the United States. There's a ton of people. I know so many real estate investors sitting on the sidelines saying, I'm waiting until the market corrects and then I'm going to start buying again. But the problem with that is, as soon as you see any kind of little dip at all, then you're going to see that money coming in, and that supports the higher level. Plus, inflation is starting to get under control, which means they're probably going to start lowering interest rates at some point. I think we will see a recession, but I think real estate prices will stay pretty stable through that recession.
And that's for residential, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be certain areas of the market that crash. There always are, right? I'm cautiously optimistic about residential. Like I said, I still think you need to buy long-term cash flowing properties with solid debt in place. Don't get floating rate debts, because there's a lot of risk in the market right now. So long-term buy and hold, have fixed rate financing, have an adequate cash reserve, and have some cash flow, and you should be okay on those. I'd be a little careful with office. I know I just bought one this year, but we got a really good deal on it, and it's in an area that I really like, so I feel good about that particular deal. But I would definitely be careful on office. But I think most of the market's actually relatively stable.
Sweet. Thanks, man. Appreciate you again. We'll hang out.
Right on.
Thank you, Aldo. I see Peter also saying in the chat, I hope I get an invite to the Chattanooga Cigar Night. Maybe we just need to.
We'll just have to do it. Otherwise everyone just come to San Juan, because there's great cigar house here, like in Old San Juan. It's like the best cigar lounge I've ever been at.
We're planning on that, Jeff. We're gonna. I'll let you know on that. By the way, tonight I'll shoot you a quick call after this.
Cool.
And maybe we do a fireside chat here. I'm happy to host it, and we get everybody around the fire.
Right, no doubt. Well, we could definitely do we could just throw ourselves an event, and we'll just have a cigar and real estate night in San Juan. Everyone can give me a whole bunch of money so I get rich. That sounds fun.
Let's go. All right, last question, guys. Last question. I know it's 9:30. Lance, don't want to cut you short. What's up, brother?
But I have 30 seconds. Hey, guys. Hey, Jeff. Thanks for
I'm done. It's 9:30. I'm out. I'm done. Not
Thanks.
talking to Lance.
Hey, man.
It's good to see you again. Both of you, actually.
Yeah,
these guys have already read my book, right? You guys already read it?
That's right.
Yeah. What'd you think?
Great. It's great.
Okay.
Already sharing it on Facebook for you, man.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
So, hey, we're going to the Multifamily Wealth Project in Vegas next week. And my question to you is, as newbies, we've have offers out. We don't have any multifamily yet, but we've been doing a lot of research and training, right? What would be the best approach with some of the more seasoned investors for finding capital partners or, JV partners?
So I think the secret is, when you go to any kind of networking event, is you want to you don't want to like just be running around talking to people being like, hey, I need money from you, like let's go partner with stuff. Instead, you just focus on meeting 1 or 2 or 3 quality people and
Mhm.
building a good relationship with them, much like we met, right? Like, so for people that don't know, Lance and I met at a meetup. Well, we met at Bigger Pockets, right? Bigger Pockets conference in San Diego.
Yep.
And then crazy, we just saw each other a month ago or so in Dallas, right?
Yep.
Because you guys both drove down to see me when I was at a different real estate meetup. And that's the kind of stuff you need to keep doing. You want to meet people like me to possibly partner with. You need to seek those people out and then bring value to them, show up, read their stuff, tell them, share their stuff on Facebook, but also just be authentic and tell people where you're at, tell your story. Because the thing is, and I did this, by the way, for everyone who's still listening, if you do buy my book on Tuesday and you send me proof you bought it on Tuesday, I will send this to you for free. I did a 30-minute recording on personal branding and how you can stand out in any room. I'm going to send it to you, Lance, as soon as we get off the phone so you guys can have it. And watch that. I think that will actually really help you with, it'll be a more longer answer than this 30 seconds that we had here. So
Awesome.
But
Hey,
thank
thanks a
you.
lot, man. Appreciate all the value you brought tonight.
Absolutely.
it's always good to see you.
So yeah,
Me too.
let's reiterate that, Jeff, right? For everybody that does send proof of buying the book on Tuesday to you, right? And what's your email? Throw that maybe in the chats too.
Yeah, so it's just my name. It's really easy. It's jeffreyholst@gmail.com, but I'll type it in real here. I have
It's that 30-minute training on how to brand and yourself and stand out in any room, right? So definitely take advantage of that as well.
Yeah, and also if you just DM me, or whatever on Instagram, it doesn't matter. If I see that you gave it to me, if I don't respond, just keep bugging me until I give it to you, because I'm happy to give it to whoever buys the book. And if you already bought it, I'd still probably give it to you, just so you guys know. I won't really make you do it on Tuesday. I just prefer you do it.
There's
on
Trevor
Tuesday.
smiling because Trevor bought the book already. He actually hit me up, right? He was like, "Hey, you think we can still get that recording?"
I sure did.
You guys can still get the recording, I promise.
Love it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for tonight. This was amazing. I know everybody here enjoyed it as well. Very interactive again. Appreciate it. And we're so excited. We're so excited for more. Excited to see you in Puerto Rico, to see you back here in Chattanooga. And let's see what collaboration we got going on here in the future. I think there's more to come, right? And with that being said, no bad days, right? No bad days, guys. No more bad days for 32 people now. And thanks for joining. Thanks for the time on a Sunday night, Jeff.
Oh,
Thank you,
anytime.
Jeff. This was
Thanks
awesome.
for having me.
Yes, sir.
100%. And guys, with that, don't hop off too soon, because we tell you who we're going to have on next Sunday here. And we're going to leave with high energy. I'm sharing my screen without being cut out anymore.
This is a pivotal moment, man, in our Zoom history.
Pivotal moment. Exactly. Guys, tomorrow, Billionaire Pete, you talked to him here, or he spoke to you guys also briefly here, or spoke with Jeff briefly. He's going to talk to brokers with you guys tomorrow. Dial in 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday. And then we're going to continue with our ecosystem here, as always, as every week. So dial in tomorrow, 2 p.m. and then Tuesday, napkin underwriting and so forth. But with that being said, on next Sunday, we have a special guest here, a guy that we very much treasure, that we have met him in Houston. When was that, Trevor? In February, I believe, right?
Yep, that's right.
His name is Sujay Mehta, I think is how you pronounce it, right? So Sujay is very active in Columbus, Ohio, which is one of our focus markets. Matter of fact, he owns, I believe, 16 hotels. Is it 16?
Something 16 like that,
hotels
in
Columbus. So yeah, he's not an active multifamily operator, but his story on how he got there is one-to-one lining up with what we're doing here and how we get into the multifamily space, how you get well connected, how you go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. So this guy is an absolute amazing go-giver as well. Super fun guy to be around, super nice guy to be around, big heart. And man, I'm super excited to have him on here on Sunday. Trevor, do you have any more to share about Sujay?
Man, I think we'll just keep it at that, and just everybody come ready, buckled up, because it's going to be a fun ride next week.
Yeah, at worst case, you're going to maybe get a discount code for Marriott in Columbus, Ohio, right?
That's right.
All right, guys.
I'm gonna have to be back for that discount code.
Yeah, exactly, right? Everyone wants that discount code for the Marriotts. All right, guys. Let me make sure that I am also not just sharing my screen, but also my sound, because we want to make sure, as always, that we're going to leave with high energy, right, guys? So I hope you felt activated tonight. I know I sure do. I can look at Trevor and I see the activation in him as well. So guys,
No bad days,
let's
bro.
go. No bad days. Exactly. No bad days. Great week ahead of us. Let's take action. Come back here on Sundays. Would love to hear how it went and just move the needle 1 week at a time. So with that being said, let's crush it and off we go.
All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step up in the building, everybody hands go up. And they stay there, and they say yeah, and they stay there. Cause all I do is win, win, win. And if you going in, put your hands in the air, make them stay there.
Ludacris going in on the verse, cause I never been defeated and I won't stop now. Keep your hands up, get them in the sky for the homies that ain't making it and my folks locked down.